Greetings. Welcome back to the Voice out of Zion. Once again, we have our great ambassador here, Prime Minister, Prince Asiel bin Israel. And today we're going to talk to you about the importance of the women in our lives, the women of the world, the mothers. He's going to speak to you directly about their wisdom and their particular portions in our life and our affairs. It's so important, so please listen in real good and take good notes, because we enjoy having you here. Thank you, Prince.
Well, first of all, welcome to the worldwide audience of the original African Hebrew Israelite nation worldwide. What I wanted to share today is both pain and joy, to borrow a line from one of the songs of the 70s. And that is to say that within the last 7 days, I lost a beloved wife that ascended to the next level of growth and development. And it's not about sadness, it's about we are beginning the resurrection of those spirits that were foundation building blocks in the kingdom of God at Jerusalem, in the kingdom of Yah. And I wanted to give a special recognition to my wife, Havana, who for more than 47 years have been a constant companion in the kingdom and a sister of great spirit, insight, and wisdom. But I wanted to start it off prophetically so that spiritual women know how we in the original Hebrew Israelite kingdom worldwide look at them. I want to start with the first book of Genesis, Genesis 1 and 26.
Okay. So it reads on this wise, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, and in the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them.
I wanted that understanding that if there's a God, there's a goddess. If there's a king, there's a queen. If there's a prince, there's a princess. If there's an intelligent man, there's an intelligent woman. Complete balance in the universe. When I went to Israel, the very first wife I took in the kingdom was Havana, which meant the understanding of God, the feminine balance of me going into the next level of my ascension. And I wanted you to know for a very special reason something about Havana as we journeyed to Jerusalem. In 1973, when Israel was trying to decide what to do with the Hebrew Israelites from America, the African Hebrew community, there was a move to begin to deny the reality of the historical connection of the African Hebrews to the biblical Israelites. And because the world had contextualized Israel as a European country and a European people, if you go back, they used to call Israel the Middle East. And if you look deeper into it, the Middle East of what? The Middle East of where? And so when we began to look historically we found that Israel was landlocked to the country of Egypt before they dug the Suez Canal in the late 1800s to disconnect Israel from Africa so that no one would know that Israel and Africa was one landmass. But if you go into Jerusalem, there's a hotel on one of the mountains that describes Jerusalem as Northeast Africa. And that is to say that we, the original African Hebrew Israelites, are not saying that all of the people that are Jews around the world are African descent today, but we're saying that all of those Jews around the world were connected to the original African Hebrew community that started with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and their wives that began to lay the foundation for the beginning of the new spiritual family. And because Abraham was called a friend of God and would be a father of many nations, we are now speaking to the descendants of the spiritual family of Israel worldwide. And I wanted to touch on that because it's very important that if those of you who've studied history, and particularly biblical history, you know that Catholicism carries in one of its sacred churches in Eastern Europe pictures of the African Madonna, or the Black Mary, the mother of Jesus, or Yeshua. And I wanted to lift up the African woman back to her status as Queen Mother of the planet of spiritual women, so that the women of African descent will know that they come out of the women that the Creator of heaven and earth chose to be the example of what divine womanhood should be about. And so, in reading the book of Genesis, where God was creating the man, he created the woman too. Male and female created he them, so that you will begin to look in the mirror and see the beauty of being chosen by God to be the model of femininity on this planet. So having said that, as I journeyed up to Jerusalem, in my journey back to fulfill the prophecy of Abraham in the book of Genesis, also in the 15th chapter, when he said, "Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they shall serve them and afflict them 400 years, and afterwards I will bring them out back to the land of their fathers." Well, in 1968, in the United States of America, Dr. King, a very spiritual man and a descendant of the biblical Israelites, knew that he had a greater destiny. And 5 days before he was brutally murdered, he announced to the world that the Creator had allowed him to go to the mountaintop and look over and see the promised land. He said, "I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land." That was April of 1968. In May of 1968, the African Hebrew, the descendants of the biblical Israelite, landed back in Northeast Africa. The late Ben-Ami and Prince Keskiahu landed in Israel to begin the journey back to establishing a presence of the historical Israelites as well back into that land. And with them came great women out of America that began to not only populate the land with the children of the future that now live in the Holy Land as we celebrate this Jubilee year. I want it to be clear that this great beginning of the spiritual divine family returning back to Israel, those Jews who are part of Israel that were scattered into Europe and have maintained the Torah as they understood it for the thousands of years that they have been doing it. This is not an argument as to whether or not they are legitimate. They are very much legitimate, and we are here to embrace the whole house of Israel, the whole family of Israel, and become the people of God again on this planet that will take the world back to truth, justice, peace, mercy, and love, so that peace can ascend from Israel and descend on the planet. Well, none of this could be done without the spiritual woman. So as we journey into the book of Genesis and we see the divine woman being made at the same time that the son and the servants of God begin in Genesis. And he said he planted them eastward in Eden, in what people popularly call the Garden of Eden, meaning that that was the original beginning of the new man and the new woman, Northeast Africa. And if you go to the book of Genesis, you will know it's Africa because they identify landmarks that are still there. The Blue Nile, the White Nile, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. The Blue Nile runs from Uganda in East Africa all the way up to Egypt. The White Nile springs over into what is modern day DRC, and the Tigris and the Euphrates is up in modern day Iraq and Iran. So you will see that we're talking about the Holy Lands, and right now the Holy Lands represent close to 23 nations existent between those boundaries that were originally drawn in the book of Genesis as the Garden of Eden. So there we will begin the journey that I wanted to talk about. I want to fast forward and begin to talk about Havana, my wife, who was given to me to go on this sacred journey together. Havana was 26 years old, living in California at the time, going to UCLA, and was living the good life and the sophisticated life of Hollywood and Beverly Hills, California, and was friends with one of the famous writers of that day who produced Cooley High. And it was that relationship that she disconnected with when she got an invitation from her sister to come and hear this man from Israel, which was me, speaking about it was time to begin to return back to our spiritual roots in Israel, Northeast Africa. And after hearing me speak, she returned to close out her affairs in California and journeyed to Israel in the year 19 1893 and remained there until this day, raising 4 beautiful children. The first one, a girl named Moria, taught or instructed by the Creator. The second one, Asiel, the angel of the Lord. The third, Uval, living waters that go through the human body, the blood of life, that spiritual blood. And fourth, Yat Mead, endurance, perseverance, and the continuity to continue to serve God. Not only did she provide those 4 children through her own womb, but she joined with her great sister wife, Joanna, who means God has answered, who brought forth Lisa, the joy of God, Ahava, the love of God, along with Prince Ben Asiel Jr. to make up that form of life of God in the Holy Land. Then there was Shalemia, the perfection of God that came about to help continue to refine the work. And these women joined with the great women that were foundational, Imam Malka, your honor was with Ima, who was the mother, Miriam, of Rabbi, the spiritual mother of Rabbi Ben Ami. Ima Bina, Ima Tikva, Ima Yonina, Ima Batzion. These great women were foundational in creating the structure of the new sisterhood out of America. And so it was non-racial, it was non-biased, it was the women of spirit coming to build new children for the new generation. So I wanted to talk about her life at 26 years old, leaving America, leaving the lifestyle of the Western world, to come back and begin to rebuild the divine family. And so we wanted to touch a little bit on her works and her dedication. She journeyed back down to America in '81 to begin and form the first International Jerusalem Sisterhood Conference in Atlanta in the year of 1982 that began to rebuild the sisterhood worldwide. And out of Atlanta, sisterhoods began to spring up in Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, California, Dallas, Texas, Houston, St. Louis, Missouri, New York City, L.A., California. And these great spiritual women came from all over, including West Africa and the country of Ghana, with the great sister Ahalea from Ghana, who became one of the crown sisters that began to open up all of West Africa so that the women of Africa would know that their redemption back to royalty would begin from Jerusalem. And so today, we're not talking about sadness. We're talking about the resurrection of the spirit of the women that were written about in the Bible, the Marians, the Elizabeths, the Elishevas, and those great women, Vashti, who are foundational in God's kingdom on this earth. And so these great women, and Havana was one of those women, a crowned sister in the community for more than 38 years of total service and dedication to this very day for her God and his people and the people who wanted to be redeemed from the evils of what the 400 years of captivity had reduced the great people of God to. So to you great women, this is dedicated to you in honor of your great sister, Havana Eshet Shagrir, Prince Asiel in Israel. So I wanted to open up Kohen with that acknowledgement of my great wife and her great sisters who were never jealous or insecure with each other, but began to bond like sisters. There was never a harsh word or an angry word ever spoken among them to each other to this very day. And so we honor her life beginning today and forever. And just as we have read historically about the other women of old, as of this day is the beginning of announcing the great women at Jerusalem, the Ima Nekamas, the Ima, is so many I want to name, that Nekama and Skanit Yoyada, these great women, and Anam, that were foundational in the beginning of the great women who helped build and solidify the platform that is existing today in that land, so that they will know that they will never be forgotten, and they were not small players. There would be no kingdom in Israel without the great women that dared to trust us enough to leave this world and go and be co-builders in the new world from the Holy Land. And so we applaud you, we lift you up, and we validate you forever, and your children will be known all the time. And now I want to go to the book of Proverbs. Solomon, the great king, asked for wisdom and understanding. And so I asked for understanding and wisdom, and not only got it, but got it in the form of a beautiful sister. What does the first chapter of the Proverbs say about the man talking to his son and the son listening to his father and mother? Read it, please.
It reads on this wise. Proverbs, first chapter, 7th verse. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. But
respect of truth is the beginning of all knowledge. Let's replace the word fear with respect.
Right.
Of truth is the beginning of all knowledge. Read on.
But fools despise wisdom and instruction.
Foolish children and men and women despise instructions. Somebody got to be able to tell you what is right so you'll know what is wrong. Read on.
My son, hear the instructions of thy father.
Hear the instructions of thy father. Honor thy mother and thy father.
And forsake not the law of thy mother.
The Torah, the instructions of your mother. She is your first teacher in the beginning, and she will lay down the foundation. For it says, teach a child the way that it should go when it is young, and it will not depart as it gets older. The wisdom of the mother, the wisdom that Ima Havana instructed the family, not just her personal children, but the children of the community that continued on to this very day, is what has kept them on the straight and narrow path. Do not reject the wisdom of the mother. So, I wanted them to really understand the value of the female spirit in the universe. Without it, I'm saying to the men, without it, there can be no wholeness of life so that we can get back into balance. We picked up all of the habits of cultures that did not respect the spiritual woman and caused her to be looked at as a low-life female. That's not who the spiritual woman is. She is the goddess in human form. She is the mother of the creation of righteousness and truth and justice. She is the balance to the aggressive male to bring in the element of love and tenderness and honesty and integrity. So I'm saying this day, in celebration of the great life of the women of this planet who have sacrificed their lives since we came out of the Holy Land for the last 2,000 years and have maintained us to go back into the Holy Land after 400 years in captivity in modern day Egypt and Babylon. So I'm saying to you great women, there was no way for us to have gotten through physical slavery without your protection and wisdom. There's no way to have gotten through the discrimination, the humiliation, without your teaching us patience and long suffering in order to endure the sentence. It is impossible to have gone to become president of the United States, to become governors of the United States, to become presidents in Africa and prime ministers, if there was not the feminine woman. And that's why Golda Meir was an example of a spiritual woman heading up a nation, so that you will know that kind of spirit is what made the difference in the early days of Israel, that it could maintain. And those men had the wisdom and the vision to lift up her when women were not even allowed to vote and be in government in those days. They put her at the head of the government of the most important nation on the planet, the nation that was lifting itself back up to be God's representative. So I wanted that to be foundational on the discussion today.
Absolutely.
See, because as we review on this program during the week, we're talking about a historical connection of why and how we got back to Israel. And I'm saying, without the feminine spiritual woman, we would not be back in the promised land today that Dr. King saw. And we fulfilled that vision.
Well, Prince, we got some powerful questions coming up for you. Really appreciate that history,
Yes.
in-depthness of the woman, and there's many, many more questions coming and much more to come. Stay with us for a commercial break, and we will get right back to you shortly. Thank you.
I get that feeling, and I've got something I want to say.
One of the great things about being a vegan is that the uniqueness of it.
And I've got to say it my way.
And so gathered with me today are just a sampling of those vegans who have become loyal supporters of Soul Vegetarian.
Welcome to Soul Vegetarian Restaurant.
I'm Dr. Willie Wilson. People in Chicago have been crying out for justice, equality, and fairness from their government for years. And it keeps getting worse. Unfair taxes, laws that unjustly imprison nonviolent offenders. The rich get richer, and the everyday people suffer. It's time for a change. With your help, I'm here to do it. I'm asking for your support as I run for mayor for the city of Chicago.
Paid for by drwilliewilsonfoundation.org.
Hart, what's going on?
I'm leaving.
Why? What did I do?
Not enough. You constantly ignore me. You barely eat anything healthy. You're half as active as you used to be. The pressure is just too much. I quit.
Okay, I get it. I'll do better. Just please,
Don't leave. Okay. But remember, if I go, you go.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Tropical World. Come to Golden's Tropical World for tropical fish of all sizes, colors, and types, and other small animals like iguanas and birds from all over the world. There are beautiful tanks, pet supply needs, including dog and cat foods, and expert consultation. Check out Golden's Tropical World, 8611 South Ashland Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. Call ahead, 773-239-8809. Your pet shop.
I'm Dr. Willie Wilson. In light of the Laquan McDonald case, we have to assure that fairness and equal rights are protected for all citizens of Chicago, and this has not been the case with this mayor. Vote for me, and I can assure you that fairness and equal opportunity for all citizens of Chicago.
Paid for by drwilliewilsonfoundation.org.
Why? Why? Why are you following me? Why my hoodie make me look suspicious?
Why does my music make me dangerous?
Why are people that are supposed to protect me attacking me?
Why are you afraid of me? Why do you think I'm dangerous? Why do I afraid of people who are supposed to protect me?
Why can't I make a peace sign without you labeling the gang sign?
Why does standing your ground only work when I'm on the ground?
Why do you show this photo over this one?
Why do you only stop and frisk me?
Why do you have low expectations for me?
Why can't I run down the street without causing alarms?
Why do you think I'm a thug?
Why do you assume I'm armed? Why can I breathe? Why is my mom scared every time I leave the house?
Why are you targeting me?
Why am I a target? Why? Why? I know why. And it has to stop. It must stop.
Because I have dreams.
Because I can change the world.
Because I'll make a difference. Because I have a family. Because I am strong.
Because I'm talented.
I have a voice.
I can find a cure.
I have goals.
I can lead the country.
I am determined.
I have a future.
Because I'm a scholar.
I am powerful.
I'm someone's friend.
I'm someone's brother.
I'm someone's son. Someone loves me.
And because my life matters too.
My life matters.
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 Our lives matter.
And so did theirs.
Welcome back. We are so glad once again to be talking with the Prime Minister, International Ambassador, Prince Asiel bin Israel. We want to talk more in depth about the occurrence that just occurred with the family. We want to talk more about some of the words and terms that are often said and how those things are looked at under this New World perspective. We talk about Prince Memorial. And you've heard many times people ask you, Prince, is there going to be a memorial? When will it be? And, you know, how do we handle that as far as the past? And now we look to the future. And how do we put all of that together from a New World perspective?
Well, you got to go first to the 21st chapter of Revelations. Mm-hmm. And when you begin to read, you say, and there was a new heaven and a new earth. Mm-hmm. For the old heaven and the old earth had passed away. Right. Meaning that the old understanding of how the human being lived on earth had to change. And if you go on in it, you'll see it says that God would wipe away all the tears. There would be no more crying. There would be no more death. And then there was a point in the scriptures where it said, and the dead that rested in the earth would begin to rise. And then when you look at the prophet Ezekiel, he talked about the valley of dry bones. I'm saying that with the transition of my son, I knew it was now time to begin the journey of the resurrection. Mm-hmm. See, one of the responsibilities that I had in the kingdom of Yah was to be the redeeming angel. Mm-hmm. That was the official job description that I had.
That's right.
In the beginning, as I was sent out in 1973, when we were under great pressure, and the late Prince Elihu wrote a song on his way from Jerusalem to deliver the message of the day. An angel flew from the Holy Land to his people far away, to a land where his fathers were slaves. To many foreign lands he would travel to fulfill his father's command, going here and there and going everywhere, teaching that the kingdom of God is at hand. But at some point, it had to manifest itself. That's right. In the early days, we didn't really understand the depth of our returning back to the Holy Land, and we didn't all know what our descriptions were. We were given attributes, all of us, by our names. Anything in front of your name is just an additional description to do work. Mm-hmm. For Prince in front of my name, Asiel, is the name, the action of God, the energy of God. He whom the Creator has created in His image. Well, you don't need any title with that. That means what you've got to do. So, that action caused me, after the prince wrote a song about me, that I would be an angel going back to tell the people a message. And the first place I delivered that message was in the city of Detroit in America in 1973, with the sister Zipporah hearing it, and Prince Ben David and Prince Gabriel Godot and I were there laying the foundation for the redemption of the people. And most people didn't have a clue as to what it was that we were talking about going back to Israel. But a spiritual woman by the name of Ima Kava, who was the owner of a cultural school in Detroit, heard me speak at Michigan State University. Her and another sister invited me to Detroit to meet men who believed that they were Israelites, elders, and they told me that now that I had returned back to Israel, that their faith had been confirmed. Before then, they just believed in God. But after talking to me, they knew it was time to believe God. That the black man that the world had said was a Negro and nothing, and a coon and a shine, I came back as a prince, not to look down on anybody, but to lift up the people who had been looked down on. And it was that great woman, Ima Kava and Ima Hale and Ima, several other, the Katsida's mother, who were embracing me and began to move around Detroit and started a fire in Detroit that to this day has never gone out. So the great men and women from Detroit in the 73 and the 74 movement that exists now in Israel came out because I was ordained to go down and deliver the children of Israel in the lands of the great captivity of America back to the promised land. So that's what that was all about in the beginning. So we now understand that we don't believe in God, we believe Yah. Every day now.
That's so important. And I want to definitely ask these questions so we can put all things in perspective for the new world. As a priest, my portion is to bring out the holiness in all that's being said and how to redirect ourselves back to Yah in our actions. So we talk about memorial, we talk about everlasting life now. We talk about living forever, not passing, but uplifting. And let's put that in perspective to the actual struggle and the living this life that we're doing on how we go forward with the attitude of raising up, not putting behind us, not burying, but uplifting.
You see, when we talk about ascension, most people got the mythical idea of the bones coming out of a grave and rising up in the sky.
That's right.
And we would talk that you would come back on a cloud.
Right.
We would come back speaking in an elevated language. You see, the reason we don't do memorials because it's memory that we're talking about. Our memories have been reactivated. You got to remember in the book of Genesis too, that we were cut off from the tree of life. We had no idea what life. We've been living death. All of the time, everybody said, you got to die. You got to die. Right. And so guess what we did? We kept dying. But once we were activated to begin to live, when Menami began to talk about everlasting life, he wasn't talking about at that instant. He was talking about the beginning of a process that if you stayed on this path, you would ultimately reach where you got cut off at. So we hear that 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step.
Yes.
But if you go halfway and stop and go back, you did 500 miles, but you haven't went anywhere. If you turn around and go 500 miles back, you haven't moved. So we didn't stop because there were challenges in Israel or there were problems in Israel. You take Japan had been bombed by an atomic bomb that wiped out 2 of its major cities and hundreds of thousands of its people instantly. Japan didn't give up.
No.
Germany was leveled to the ground during World War II. Germany now has the strongest economy. I want the people of God, even though it looks like you poor, you destitute, you're at the bottom of the realm. We come to lift you up. There is no death in the God of Israel. We are the people of resurrection. The resurrection has begun. Havana spirit, the spirit of understanding, is going into everybody in Israel first who was touched by her. She will possess a spirit to put inside of them to continue to understand not only what I'm saying, but what's being done around them. She did not die. She went on to the next level to do the work at the next level. Ben-Ami did not die. He went on to the next level of continual work. There were those in Israel that have talked to his spirit in Israel, and he sent messages by them to me for Prince to continue on and for the people to know that Prince Asiel is who they need to trust now. We left him back there. Those messages came from Ben-Ami as well as Prince Jalik, so that the people will know he is still talking to me. That is what I wanted to say about memory. Remember who elevated me. I'm still that spirit that he recognized from the very beginning when he didn't know me physically. But no one was closer to Ben-Ami in the geopolitical development of the community than Prince Asiel.
You know, that's so true. And we have to take these instructions and put them into our life, Prince. I cannot go home and to my family and not utilize these principles in everlasting life, in living, in my children, in my wife, in all of my affairs. How do you keep life going? You have to apply these principles. How else will you dream dreams and see visions? Unless you take in these kinds of principles for this new world and activate them and begin to receive your instructions outside of man. So it's so important that you're highlighting these points, Prince, because we need this in our lives today. We're being called today for this.
It's important. See, most of us have been contextualized by Eurocentric thinking.
Yes.
Meaning that the dominant powers on the face of the planet now were those who were our captors.
Right.
They were not our liberators. I'm part of the liberation team. Mm-hmm. I'm part of that band of angels that the people used to sing about when they said, swing low, swing chariot, coming to carry me home.
That's right.
A band of brothers coming after me, coming to carry me home. Well, I came with a band of brothers in 1973. It wasn't just me, it was a team of us. It was Nasi Gabriel Godot. It was Nasi Ben David. It was Nasi Amishadai. And I can go on down the list, Nasi Avidan and others that came and began to gather the people in Detroit and Chicago and begin the movement out of America. We went into New York and brought people out of New York. So I'm saying it has not stopped to this day. We are gathering the anointed of the Creator.
Hallelujah. And this is so important. These principles that we're talking about, we read them, but when you talk about a living principle,
yes,
now you see it a little bit different. You can begin to apply it to your life today, and that's so key. What I want to ask you also is a question that came to us also about when you talk about death and you talk about life, and we begin to live the principle of living forever and keeping it in our minds and in our spirits, what do you bring forth next? You talk about life. What are you really bringing forth when you talk about life?
Well, let me tell you what one of the great priests in a message about the word meta, which is death in Hebrew.
Okay.
But if you put the olive in front of it, it's emet, which is truth. So from death, you put the olive in it, which is the beginning of the alphabet or the alphabet, and it goes from aleph to tav. Tav is the last letter.
Right.
You begin to see the resurrection in between. So I'm saying the Hebrew concept of death can be turned around. Even the English, if you spell evil, it spells, if you turn it around, it spells live.
That's right.
L-I-V-E, E-V-I-L is evil. If you turn evil around, you start living again.
Right.
All I'm simply saying to God's people is we're coming up to teshuvah. Stop and turn around and return back to truth.
Yes.
This world is rotating on the axis of a lie. Everything. Donald Trump, the president of America, have been documented as telling at least every day since he's been in office 7 verifiable lies. How do you be the head of the most powerful nation in the world and its chief administrator is lying every day? So the people now are being contextualized with evil lies. How can he say to the people that voted for him that lying is good for them? How can you say that?
Can't say.
How can his lawyers say there is no such thing as truth, no objective truth? And he was a U.S. attorney in the Justice Department. So how could anybody get justice under a man that says there's no such thing as truth? And a president that don't believe that lying is a sin. So I'm saying to you, our people understanding that we've been fed a diet of death. Well, death has no place in the new world. We're putting it under our foot. We are now starting about living. We used to say growing up in the ghettos of America, what you doing? I'm doing it to death. They say now we say we're doing it to life.
That's right.
We're eating live food. We're drinking live things. We're wearing live things. We are raising live children again by giving them values and principles and teaching them that there are things that are wrong and there are things that are right. But now we don't teach what's wrong. We only teach what's right. And if it's not right, you automatically know it's wrong. Right. And the way you find out if it's right, go back to your teachers and find out from them if they're on the right track. That's what teachers are for, to guide you to where you want to go.
Hallelujah. Let's go back to this woman, this great woman in our life, in our midst. The hardest time some men have in working with their women. What is the issue? Male and female relationships.
The issue is simple. Lying. The first thing that we go back to the first man, if we accept the biblical narrative, is that when the Creator asked Adam, "Where are you?" He said, "I was afraid of you. So I hid myself." I said, "Hiding for what?" He said, "I was naked." When you understand nakedness from the metaphysical point of view, you'll know that he wasn't covered with truth anymore.
That's right.
And so it could be obvious because he was told not to listen to anybody talking good and evil. the day you eat of that, or the day you listen to that, you will surely begin death. Because he didn't drop dead on the spot, he felt that he could have gotten away. Because remember, Satan told him, thou shalt not surely die. Death did not exist in the human being because he only knew God and good. He didn't know Satan and death. But once he deceived himself by convincing his woman to go and find out what Satan was talking about, he used her as an excuse and said to the Creator, the woman you gave me this, and I did eat it. And that's how the break became between the man and the woman. The split of the atom wasn't under the University of Chicago with the atomic bomb. The real atomic bomb was created when Adam lied to God and destroyed the relationship between the spiritual man and the spiritual woman.
Okay. So it seems like you're saying if you tell the truth,
it's all over. See, let me tell you why that's important. When I took Havana as a wife, she asked me a question, are you married? I said, yes. I said, but we separated right now because I was that old man still, thinking that when I went to Israel, I adopted a woman that had 5 children. Most people thought it was based on the flesh. It was based on Marvin Gaye singing, Save the Babies. And I felt a strong urge from a woman that I didn't know who said, would you help me save my children? I said, of course I will. I didn't know her. I didn't know the children, but I took them in as my own and gave them my name and everything I had. Their mother died a year and a half after she came to Israel. Joanna had returned my first wife back to America. I did not denounce and say those are not my children. I did not go back to Israel and be their father. And I did not disconnect from my children in America that Joanna had broken back. But I didn't break off a relationship with her. I simply told her, God didn't call you. He called me. And I didn't know what we was going to have to go through. No, I don't want you to be in Israel to suffer. I in the army of the Creator, and whatever I have to do to qualify to get back on the right side of God, I'm willing to do it. I slept on a rollaway bed in Israel, and I put my children in a kitchen to sleep in. They had left a house in Chicago. They had left private schools in Chicago. But I took them there because we had to start from building a new world. And I was willing to pay that price. So by not lying to Havana, she said, but I believe the Spirit told me that she's going to come back. Well, she had just left Israel and me and was filing for a divorce. But before that year was out, we reconciled and began to communicate so that she would know that I was a new man and I was not that man that she had married, but I was a man growing to this new man to become Prince Asiel, not Warren Brown, the old dead man. And because she then became Joanna, she heard her prayers answered by God. She then returned in 1977 and began to establish a school system that is still functioning today. So I'm saying, by telling the truth, she and I just celebrated 55 years of marriage. Havana and I celebrated 47 years of marriage. Shalami and I have celebrated 44 years of marriage. And we have all of the children. It ain't no stepchildren. We're all one family. So truth is going to bring the spiritual man and spiritual woman together, and watch jealousy and envy and doubt leave out of the midst of the family again.
And I want to talk about that because many of the saints of the kingdom take on names of different princes to take on that spirit. And you can imagine what kind of spirit this is coming from this prince. But I want to say this too. You have to get those names back. Prince Asiel never went any place. Take on those names back. Be proud to stand there and say you are Bat Asiel or Ben Asiel, because he is giving you life. And not only is he giving you life, he's describing life. So you can play this over and over again and really understand what life is. How can you give life to children and don't know what life is? So it's so important that you take in these notes and these points and really live them. I have another question for you. In talking about life and talking about women, male and female relationships, it's so important that sisters are listening to you, that men are listening to you to know how to treat our, better half, our partners in life together, how to treat each other right. Any comments or notes about how to treat each other right from a living life perspective?
Well, you see, you took back an expression that everybody used. We learned that from another culture. Well, I want you to meet my better half.
Mm-hmm.
It gave the woman a false sense of importance, and it diminished the man to reduce him to get away with being stupid and crazy that justify the stupidity that he eventually went and did.
Yeah.
And he would say, well, you're the better half.
Mm-hmm.
No. Any part of a whole that is rotten, you have to remove it, which is why the man has been removed from the spiritual woman.
Mm-hmm.
She'll tell you now, I don't need no piece of man.
Right.
If you're going to be a real man, come on in here. Right. If you're not, stay away from here. And we're saying to the spiritual woman, we have made ourselves whole, so we're not coming to you to ask you to make us whole. We're coming to you saying, we are whole if you're whole. And watch us become great in this. Mm-hmm. So we've replaced the better half with the better whole. Mm. We're talking about the divine family now. That's right. Not the divine brotherhood or sisterhood or children, but the divine family. And a family don't mean nobody but the man and the woman first. Mm-hmm. And then from that comes the real family. Mm. So I'm saying to you, that's what we have done to begin to restore the family.
If anybody's been with anybody 55 years, I know on the chat line you got some questions. Please ask questions. How did you do it? What can I change? What can I do to be a better person, a better brother, a better sister, a better mother, a better father? Ask those questions, because 55 years is no joke. Anybody that hears that, you need to run to that. Another point, Prince.
Well, let me say that today.
Go ahead, please.
That Rabbi Hodges, who has celebrated close to 70 years of marriage to his wife, and they are a great example of the divine family with Danny and Holder and his brothers and sisters.
Yes.
We must know that we can really love and respect one another. So it's not hard. All you got to do is open up and get that heart of flesh again. Mm. We've permitted our hearts to be so hard that we don't know how to love. First, start loving yourself before you can love anybody. Do what the airlines say. Put the oxygen mask on you first. Put the seat belt on you first. Then you can help somebody else. So go ahead.
Very powerful point. You know, when I first met your wife, Havana, I had no idea she was your wife. She came down from the Holy Land and began working with sisters immediately, doing things, showing them things, and teaching. And she didn't have a big shoulder. Well, I'm Prince Asiel's wife. But she just came down and showed who she was through her works. And that's so important that we show who we are and we begin to learn from those that are showing who they are through their works. Very important point.
You see, I never went around the world telling nobody I was anything but a servant.
Mm-hmm.
When they ask you who made you a prince, I would say my God and his people. I say I grew out of the work, the faith, the suffering of God's people who needed somebody that would stand up and fight for them, with them, and correct them when they were wrong. That's the only way I knew how to improve myself, is I did a self-analysis of me. One of the worst deceptions that you can do is self-deception. To convince yourself that you're something that you're not. And so when I said that I was a prince, the only way I could convince people I was a prince, that I outserved them. I learned it from Ben-Ami. He outserved everybody when we went there. He went and did the shopping. He delivered the food until he found somebody that he trusted enough to treat the people, like he would treat them.
Right.
Well, I had good examples in Nasi Shalid, who would give everything he had to the people and work for them night and day and beat sense into our heads until we got it right. Well, those were my examples, and that's what I practice to this very day. I've already forgiven everybody about whatever they've done, because that's the nature of the God that's in me. I have no anger or grudges, and particularly coming to Yom Kippur and Shabbaton, I'm announcing right now that there is no issue that cannot be resolved among the men and women of truth. Whatever the issues are, we can talk about it, and we'll accept truth as the antidote to solve the problem. That's how I stayed married for 55 and 40 plus years to women who didn't know each other and never had a single argument in the household ever.
And I can honestly say from knowing you that your wives reflect you. They talk in wisdom. My first time really having a chance to hear your wife, Joanna, speak to the family and to the children recently, I see who's her husband. I saw her speak from her heart and explain things and give motivation and give strength. And you wonder, where is she getting this from? And I say that because under the circumstances of all the various situations that have occurred recently in the past few months, she is still able to pull it down and give it to the people. I saw Shalamia say she came into the family and everybody loved her, never saw her anything but the wife of Prince Asiel and their mother. So I'm saying to you that I've seen these examples and I see them now, and I see the reflection of you through the women. It's so important that we reflect through the women.
You see, I was growing when I met all of these women.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't know what I know today. But they had enough patience to wait for me to grow. And I have enough patience for them to understand what they had to go through. So I'm always conscious of their feelings, more so now than ever, because I know things that I did, and I always apologize and remind them that because they trusted me, that's why they can trust me now. And I've made peace with my children who didn't know me because I was gone all of their youth. They just had a father that was a name, They didn't know me, the man or the spirit. And I'm humbly trying to get my children to understand I have ascended to another level of understanding. And I'm working real diligently with men like you and men who knew me before you knew me. Mm-hmm. In the sense that they saw me growing with them. So they say, well, the prince did this and the prince did that. No, he didn't do this and he didn't do that. That may be true, but I never stopped. Michael Jordan didn't hit every basket that he shot. Right. He didn't do that. And Muhammad Ali didn't win every fight that he fought, but he was still the greatest. Right. So even when we look at the leadership of a kingdom that didn't even know what leadership was under God, continue to try to improve themselves. Mm-hmm. And all you got to do is to want to change for the better. So that's how we're going to do this.
Hallelujah. Now, you aren't talking about women walking behind men. You aren't talking about women being quiet when men are talking. I mean, it seems like you're talking about a prince having a princess.
What else would you want a princess to do but to express the feminine side of God in a way that you may not understand it, but be able to hear it because it is you that she's talking to and it is you that she's reflecting. Mm. Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. We don't walk behind, we walk side by side, and when it's time for her to be in front, she can be in front. When it's time for me to step back, I step back. Mm. But whenever she steps forward, I step with her because I'm already in her. Mm. She's already in me. She don't have to feel shut out if I'm talking. I'm talking for her. Mm. When she's talking for me. So that's what I'm talking about.
That's a relationship.
It's a real relationship.
You know, we hear about relationships, but I'm talking now and all that kind of stuff. So we're taking this to the next level. And you're not just saying this. This is part of the lifestyle that he's living. And you can see this, you can observe this. And it's so important, brothers and sisters, that we begin to move this way. We move together in oneness. We listen to one another. We hear one another. The other day, we were on the phone talking, and it was a serious conversation. And I heard a child in the background come up to you. Now, in the past years, brothers would say, well, hold on, baby, go away. I'm on the phone. I'm talking. What did you say?
Come here, baby. What you want? What you need? Because I took a page out of Yeshua's book. Don't send the children away. That's the kingdom of God.
That's right.
So I understand that now. And my 5-year-old granddaughter is so adept and so sensitive. There was no way that love that she possessed, that her father and mother and grandmother put in her with the combination of me, I was just loving me as a child. Mm. And that's what I would want somebody to do for me as an older child, is have some love for me and some compassion for me.
These are different kind of children today, too.
Absolutely.
They aren't those of yesterday. Of course, that was us. But today, they are quick in understanding.
Real quick.
I mean, they're picking up things that are said, moving with it. Of course, you see them on social media. And by the way, I want to state that all the children and all the youth, we're needing your help to continue to spread worldwide these messages. So if you have the social media skills, contact us. Sisters, if you got questions, and men, if you got questions about your relationships, contact us. We want to be there for you in so many ways because we need you. It's a family affair. In the last 5 minutes, Prince, that we have, let's talk about the next step. I always want to end it in the next step. So one, we can have something to look forward to for the following message, and two, something to work toward in our life.
Well, the next step for the worldwide network of Hebrew, I want to continue to Now that we're getting better structure and better support, I want this to be a 5-6 day a week Hebrew Israelite channel that will reflect the kingdom for the last 50 plus years in Israel, so that the people will have an oral history to know the total story. And we're going to Israel, and we're going to be inviting the leaders and the speakers and the representatives of Dimona to come on this program and explain what it is they're doing and what they want to do and what they are doing, so that the people will know when they get there that there is no difference between me and them. You see, Israel has 32 political parties right now, and yet they're able to run a government, fight wars, create industry, create agriculture, and on and on and on. Universities, hospitals. We have got to sit down and reason together. And that's what I'm saying to the men and women in the Holy Land and out of the Holy Land, that the whole house of Israel is looking for us to be the examples of how to heal the hurt and mitigate the misery of the pain of thousands of years of being disconnected from Yah. We're not going to argue religion or politics. We're going to show what we can do together, and out of that will come solutions to things that we don't have answers for right now.
We need that. That's so important, that we work in oneness, that we're listening to one another, that we're communicating, and that we keep the communications going no matter what, that we continue to talk and live and work throughout Africa, that we begin to bring life back to our people wherever we are on earth, that we communicate and listen to you, that we hear your chats and your letters and your emails coming to us. Please continue that communications. We need that. We're looking forward to that. And that's part of this movement, working together with others. Prince, as a final statement, I want to talk to you about men. And of course, we'll get more detail as time goes on about the men, but what do we need the men to do relative to the women, the movement, and nationwide, all that are listening outside of this country, other parts of the world? What do we need the men to do?
We need the men to take a page out of the Hebrew history. There were always chief men. There were always men of honor, men of respect. There was always royal men. There was always men of skill and understanding. Out of all of the million soldiers that came to help David, it said there were only 200 men that knew what Israel ought to do and had understanding of the time. I'm saying I'm looking for the men who got understanding of the time and know how to sit in a room and talk with each other, so that we can begin to serve Yah and his people at the very highest level. That's what I need the men to do. And any brother that's willing to do that, we got a group of men that's willing to sit with you immediately and begin. Not to argue doctrine or ideology, but to talk about solutions to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and set the captives free.
Thank you so much, Prince. Your messages have been taken in. And listen, we're at the end of an era. You must hear these messages. Babylon the Great is not falling, has fallen. We're talking about what to do in a fallen state, how to have life and how to live and how to go forth in a fallen state. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you this Shabbat. We're going to have more keys to give you from the spiritual matters. We're going to talk to you more about the family, about where we're going, and how to prepare for these holy days from a spiritual perspective. We're taking this now real deep because we're coming into a critical time, and this is the beginning of a new age, a new era, and a new world. Thank you for calling in and listening on the chat books. Thank you for watching us and listening to The Voice out of Zion.
Amen.